Commissioner Kumar, and I can say that those were later clarified. The fact that she has a project management certificate, it was clarified, and affidavit was obtained from Stellenbosch University to that effect, confirming
there wasn't even a need to do that because she was not relying on that qualification to apply for this position.
Yes.
It's a by the way that is mentioned in the CV to say, by the way, I've done these other things, but for the purposes of my application for this position, I am only relying on my BTEC and my diploma. That's all.
I agree, Commissioner. It's just that when the markings were done for the interview, one of the and I think it also comes up in the email where I'm saying, but also she was given more scores by the panel for educational qualifications compared to Van Vuren and Bapela. And Saka only confirms her matric, diploma, and degree in engineering. I'll wait for your input. SEPO arrange a meeting. Indeed, for purposes of the application of this position, those qualifications were not even relevant. But the fact that when the panel members are scoring, they consider and the educational qualifications of applicants comparing one to another, we needed to satisfy ourselves that she has those, in case they were taken into consideration when the panel was marking.
Yes, but you can't say then she committed fraud. I mean, if the panel takes additional things into consideration, the applicant can be accused of fraud.
No,
what the applicant has put forward is what is required, and those have been verified.
True, I agree with what the Commissioner is saying, and I don't think there was any misrepresentation that was alleged in the charge sheet regarding the project management and the MBA, because as Commissioner is saying, indeed, in her application, she says that the MBA is going to be finalized in future. In fact, it was only finalized a month after the application was submitted.
And this thing here in paragraph 6, that she also made misrepresentations in her CV. I mean, that is not correct.
Commissioner Kumar, perhaps because we also tried to get clarity on this, perhaps explain what you meant by misrepresentations amounting to fraud in her CV.
Right. I'm calling it fraud, Commissioners, because she says in her CV, I've been a middle manager in BMW since, I think she says 2016 or 2017, from the year she started working. And we obtained affidavits, or at least at the time when I read the documents, there were affidavits from BMW, from human resource official, and from a person to whom Mukwelo was reporting. Both of them say Mukwelo was never a manager in BMW. She was not a supervisor in BMW, and therefore, for her to claim in the application that she was a middle manager amounted to a misrepresentation. Yes.
What you say in paragraph 6 and what you are being asked are two different things. You say in paragraph 6, she also made misrepresentations in her CV, in brackets fraud. The investigator should follow up on the validity of the project management certificate. But you confirm that that was done. So that's not the issue. And then the CV itself is on file 2, page 265. I have been through this CV. And what you are saying is simply not in this CV, unless you can point to me where that misrepresentation, which amounts to fraud, is set out there. File 2 on page 265. And it's a short CV. It's only 3 pages, so it's not very long.
Commissioner, I'm looking at the CV and maybe in relation to where she says middle manager, it's not coming out of the CV, but out of the application itself.
Yes.
But what she says on the CV, which is a misrepresentation, is on page 267, on the last page of the CV, under accomplishment, where she says that she saved over 1 million in IT security project cost by training and equipping the internal maintenance team to carry out some of the project work.
Advocate Serune, let's agree that 267, where you are reading, it deals with successes achieved in the current role. Because she says, I successfully implemented first robotic process. I saved the company 1 million in IT security. I saved 500,000 in annual maintenance. I reduced the electronic tools management.
Yeah.
That's all she says. And in fact, the affidavit from the BMW manager says, well, I can't confirm these things because maybe other people can. That's what he says. But looking at the CV as it stands, you can't say this is misrepresentation, this is fraud. I think for now, let's just accept that unless you can show that what is stated there, those are not accomplishments and that is false. There is no fraud there.
That, Commissioner, that is what I'm saying.
Yes.
That if BMW cannot confirm that,
Yes.
that she saved them 1 million, as she's stating in here, in the, then she's making a presentation. And if I'm a panel member and I'm reading this CV, it's very impressive that we're looking for a manager. If we can get a person who can save a company so much money, then probably this is one person that I can shortlist. But BMW says now for that information.
I think what I wanted to do was to show you that in the CV, the misrepresentation that is mentioned in the memo is not in the CV. I know where the problem could be on the issue of whether she has appropriate management experience.
Yes.
But that is a different topic, and maybe we will deal with that later on. For now, continue with the rest of your memo, because I was not probing you, but I just wanted to point out to you that the MBA issue, what she said in the CV is actually correct.
True.
And all the qualifications that she listed in her job application and her CV have actually been verified. And you've confirmed that.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
So
yes.
where there might have been a question mark is on whether she has appropriate management experience. But that's an issue for interpretation, because it's a term that is defined in another document, and even the way it is defined is a bit vague. But the CV as it stands, the qualifications are there, and there's no issue with them.
I agree. With regard to the qualifications, I agree. And I, like I said, those were verified, Commissioner. The issue of her being a manager, like I'm saying, if we have witnesses from BMW saying she was never a manager with us, that's the only information that we're working from. I cannot say, well, I must interpret her CV or her application otherwise. If BMW says she was not a manager and she says she was a manager, then to me it's a misrepresentation. I was going to call those two, if I was doing the trial of this case, I was going to call those two witnesses from BMW, human resource and immediate supervisor, who would have said to the court, she was never a manager with us. And therefore, how is she then shortlisted if one looks at the requirement of 3-year managerial experience in the field of the post? That is what, to me, at least at that time.
Yeah. No, and that
appeared to be flawed.
is a fair question to ask, but I will deal with it with you when we get to the national instruction.
Thanks, Commissioner.
So I have a slightly different question, but maybe before I ask you my question, let me say in tongue-in-cheek that if you called those two BMW witnesses, I would have asked, is this an IDEC matter after all? I say that tongue-in-cheek. My question is, your memo seems to me at least, to cover or to raise questions that I would expect a prosecutor to ask before there is an arrest, before there is charging and people are made to appear in court. You seem to be asking basic questions. Am I correct in that observation?
You are 100% correct, Commissioner Baloyi. These questions, the team ought to have asked themselves these questions. When I come in 2 months after the arrest, I was not supposed to be asking these questions, especially if a person is charged with, that's what I'm saying, why did you charge them with corruption? Because I'm looking for the evidence of corruption in the 4 volumes in the docket. I can't find any evidence of corruption. The question that I'm asking, the team ought to have asked itself before making a decision that we are now ready, we're going to arrest. They should have asked themselves, are we going to be able to prove a gratification? Are we going to be able to prove that Ms. Mokwele received a gratification? And the intention element, which the authors, Steyman and them, say, in order to denotes the intention element. That is why I keep on asking, in order to do what? She does not have to do anything to say, oh yeah, no, she gave them 500 rand or this or that, but the understanding between the parties that we're giving you this, we are corrupting you basically, and she's receiving on that understanding. These are questions that the team should have asked themselves. And the commissioners will see as we go on in one of my other memos, even if that had happened, I'm raising another question later, but your charge sheet is defective in a sense that you're charging them with section 4 of PRECA, which says, for subsection 1, paragraph A, a person, a public officer who is, so it talks to a public officer who is given a gratification and who accepts or receives or promises or agrees to accept a gratification from, paragraph B, a person, from another person. Therefore, the reading of PRECA will tell you that the way they drafted their charge sheet, it was vice versa. They are saying the generals gave to a civilian, the generals being public officials. If one were to stick to the language of section 4, it ought to have been the other way around. The civilian should have been the one who was giving gratification to the generals, not the other way around. Because the generals are referred to in 4.1a. They should receive, not give. And this civilian should give, not receive. But in their charge sheet, they were having it the other way around. So these are issues that ought to have been looked at, and maybe the charge sheet also interrogated. But in relation to this is about evidence. Do you have enough evidence to go through your intended charge of corruption? My view at the time, Commissioner Baloyi, was that no. They should have been asked right from the beginning. But then you arrest. After arrest, it's only when you start investigating. Now, somebody can say, okay, what if Sirunya did not come in on 8 August? I wouldn't have asked these questions. Were you going to go on with that evidence that you had at the time? Was that sufficient? Would you have convinced the court that you have a prima facie case of corruption?
Colonel Parachi thought so.